Great, so let's get started. Running a few minutes late, so we'll try and keep this pretty fast-paced. My name's Lee Honeywell. Despite being from Canada, I'm always cold, and I forgot that this was so I dressed up, but I only brought my casual hoodie, not my dress hoodie. So in addition to my day job at Heroku, where I'm a security engineer, it's part of Salesforce.com, I'm also an angel investor and frequent commentator on gender and tech issues, particularly as they relate to the startup equity funding pipeline. What this actually means is that I make fun of VCs on Twitter a lot. But don't hold that against me. So we've gone over the numbers in previous panels a whole bunch, and they're in your notes as well. So I'm not going to go into them in too much detail, but I'll sum them up as they're crap, and for the most part, they're getting worse. So I want to talk a little bit about the landscape that we're dealing with when we talk about angel investing in venture capital. In 2005, famed investor Paul Graham, who blocks me on Twitter, wrote the following: "One advantage startups have over established companies is that there are no discrimination laws about starting businesses. For example, I would be reluctant to start a startup with a woman who had small children or who was likely to have them soon." First of all, he's wrong. In California, a number of anti-harassment laws apply to companies at one employee, not the federally mandated 15 to 20 employees. The Equal Pay Act applies to virtually all employers of any size. But there's this head-in-the-sand attitude among most funders, both angels and VCs, that the rules don't apply to them somehow. They also need to get their own houses in order. Last year, several brave women blew the whistle on European angel investor Pavel Kurta, propositioning them after he'd pitched to them. And I heard a story in the room just between the panels of someone who'd experienced something similar last week, I think it was. We saw this in the Alan Pow case, obviously, but I also want to talk about a less covered case where CME Capital settled out of court on allegations that their chief operating partner, John Hagg, had been a serial harasser of women. This happened during Natasha Tiku's brief, glorious tenure at Ballywag, and she said about the case that the allegations are not limited to Hagg. The complaint also says that the management was aware of the problem. The firm's founder warned that Hagg was a predator, and that the women faced retaliation from the CMEA employees after they reported the alleged behavior. So this is the stuff behind the scenes as we tell women to just walk through the door, just take a seat at the table. Thanks, Cheryl. Val mentioned in the plenary panel that one of my theories is that we need to be talking to the limited partners who fund the big VC firms about how the funds they invest their endowments and pensions are acting. What does that look like? Kevin earlier mentioned that there needs to be infrastructure in place. I think there's a few things that could have a potentially high impact. VCs and angels can be demanding a literal quota for women on their boards of directors. Even if that quota was 1, it would raise the bar for most startups. As I think it was in the packet, 50% of Fortune 500 companies have no women on the board. And then requiring, actually Salesforce, the parent company of the company I work at, requires that hiring managers seek out at least one qualified woman candidate for every VP level or above position, including positions outside, the sort of traditional pink-collar fields in tech of HR and marketing. Beyond the CMO's office, every position in the leadership, there needs to be a specific search for women candidates. I think at a fundamental level that if Alice, the school teacher from Milwaukee, knew that her pension fund was being spent not just on pink coconut water, but also to fund companies who are clearly, pervasively, and severely discriminating against women, she would be pretty unhappy, particularly if this also meant that her pension would be performing less well than it could be, given the overwhelming evidence that women-led companies perform at a rate higher than women-led and companies with women on the board perform at a higher rate. So these funds are in dereliction of their fiduciary duty to their limited partners by discriminating against women. So that's one possibility in the toolbox of enacting change in the world of VC and angel funding. I'm going to turn it over to my co-panelists now that I've shifted the Overton window just a little. Going to turn it over to folks to talk about some of the other tactics that people are bringing to the table in terms of changing the funding landscape. So, sorry, just switching Google Docs here because I didn't print stuff out ahead of time. I think we were going to go straight to Erin to talk about the seed funding and early stage pipeline.
Absolutely. Hi, my name is Erin Flynn, and I'm a investment banker at Acral Capital up in San Francisco. And I'm also a partner at the Vader Investment Club, which is a new kind of investment club that combines the best parts of venture capital along with some of the newer crowdfunding models that have been popping up in the last couple years. So we'll be launching that later this summer, which will be exciting. I think right now, if you look at women both in startups and in venture capital, I think most firms, most corporations, they really want to hire women. You know, they're well-meaning. They don't know where to start. They've got a couple high-profile women that they're in contact with, and they reach out to those women and they say, hey, are you interested in this opportunity? However small or large those opportunities are. Maybe it's a full-time position, maybe it's a speaking opportunity, maybe it's a board seat. But the problem is that these few targeted women are inundated with offers. There are a few women that get all the offers, and so they're very selective, and so they turn down a lot of things. And then the people at the firm say, you know, we've tried to hire women and we can't attract, they won't say yes. You know, we're getting rejected. And so I think if you back up a little bit and not look at it so much as trying to fill a seat and only going out to your network, the world becomes much larger. And I started thinking about this in terms of an M&A transaction. And if we were only to go out to the high-profile companies, if we were only to go to Google, Facebook, Twitter, and Microsoft, we would get a deal done every 5 years, 10 years. You know, and so instead of saying, oh, no one's interested in this company, we might as well move on to the next one, we actually create a target list that includes 100 or 150 companies, and understanding the value of each of those targets. And so maybe it's different, you know, because each company in each sector has a different value, a different timing, different goals. And I think that's kind of how we need to look at women in technology, and not look at it as trying to fill a seat, but understanding different women's values, their timing, what motivates them. And if we look at it from that perspective, I think it takes less pressure off. And so it's not a board seat that's going to take up all this time, or it's not a position that they're saying, well, can I do 80 hours a week? Can I do, you know, it's getting much more open-minded about it. And I think I have two things that I think firms can do to kind of encourage women to be more women in the pipeline. One thing is get referrals. If you are reaching out to a woman and she says, no, I cannot do this at the time, get referrals. I'm sure, you know, women are fantastic networkers, and they would probably give 5 to 10 names of other women to talk to. And that's one way of getting introduced to women who aren't, you know, jumping up saying, hey, look at me, you know, I'm interested in these board seats. And I think the other thing that you can do is create networks of people that is on a more informal basis. So it's saying, okay, we're going to create this network, some men, some women, and that way you get to get people involved on a less committed basis. It's not a full-time position. You're not having to pay them a salary and, you know, commit to a full year. And so people can give the involvement that they want to give and that they have time to give. And I think it's also a way to get women involved, because I think it takes a lot longer to get to know women and their values and their motivations than a man. So it's getting men and women at the same table, but there's going to be a different process. There's going to be a different process for attracting and keeping women at the table as there is for attracting and keeping men at the table.
Cool. Thanks. So we'll next go to Louis to talk about the existing state programs and focus on impact investing.
Sure. Can you guys hear me? Good. All right. So Louis Stewart, worked for the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. You know, why is a guy sitting here talking about women in tech? Legitimate question. I usually shift the conversation a little bit to diversity in tech, you know, but I'm here to talk about state programs and what's going on. And the reality is there's way too many fractured conversations happening. So our office is really about job creation in the state. So we look at the whole entire, 38 million population in California, and how do you impact the businesses in that space, and so on and so forth. And we're just getting to the space now where we're looking at workforce and economic development together. So there aren't any real programs focused specifically around women in tech, minorities in tech, immigrants in tech, any of that stuff. But what's really important about what I do for the state is in innovation entrepreneurship, I actually oversee the largest in-state network of innovation networks in the whole U.S. What that entails is looking at the triple helix, so looking at government, industry, and academia working together to create an ecosystem where these things can actually happen and where you can actually implement systemic change. One of the challenges I face is I walk into a place, Google, HP, whatever, and I say, I'm from the state and I'm here to help. And I usually get that. I get laughter. And then summarily, oh yeah, thank you for coming, and the door is closed. And a lot of that is because I'm not coming with money. So obviously you look at California, the largest state, our budget's actually turned around thanks to my boss, the governor. But a lot of the money still isn't shifted towards giving it to startups. And that's a lot of the requests that I end up getting is how can the state give me a grant? How can the state do this? How can the state do that? We recently looked at partnering with folks like the Bixel Exchange and Hot House at Cal Poly SLO and a few other organizations to look at capital access opportunities. So the state actually did pull together some grant money through the SBDC network to look at how do you help small companies in these accelerator spaces and incubator spaces in order to get to the capital space. So I'll keep it short and get us back on time. One of the things I actually need, and one of the reasons I'm out talking, is because we're getting into the impact investing space. So we're looking at, like I said, the triple helix, government, industry, and academia. We're trying to bring in the philanthropy space and the foundation space to help shift the conversation a little bit. There's a program that we're going to be rolling out hopefully very soon called the SVX, Social Venture Exchange. And we're looking at how do we influence the impact investing space from the state perspective. We're the largest state, we have a voice, and I think that we can do some things if you look at impact investing from the education pipeline downstream all the way to helping women in tech, minorities in tech, and immigrants in tech. But the only way to do that is by using California's voice to actually impact that. So we're actually pulling together a lot of the foundation philanthropists around the state in a couple weeks actually, to look at how do we set forth a platform at the state level through these innovation hubs that I oversee. So it becomes part of the culture to actually look at underserved communities, underrepresented communities, and bring them to the table with a bigger voice as part of the state. So I challenge all of you to actually look at the state as a partner, not necessarily as a donor or a grantee or a grantor, I should say, that is only there for money. Look at us as far as access, convening, as a partner. And yeah, we'll get into the rest, I guess.
Awesome, thanks. So Melinda is going to talk about how crowdfunding can help close the gender gap, which I'm really excited to hear about.
Hi, my name's Melinda Moore. I'm an entrepreneur, angel investor, and currently the Chief Marketing Officer and do deal sourcing for Crowdfunder. What I like to look at in general is human potential and look at how technology can transform the way that it can democratize people's access to opportunity. And one of the reasons that I think that crowdfunding, and I work for crowdfunder.com specifically, is very transformational, is that it can democratize the way that people have access to capital. So when you look at the traditional models of angel investing or early stage, and you start to break down, well, what percentage of women are making these decisions, it's literally, it was about 10%, 15 years ago, it's now like probably under 5% around that as female partners. And when you're looking at crowdfunding, it really is, it opens it up to be able to have anybody. So it doesn't matter what gender, doesn't matter what race you are, but enables you to powerfully tell your story to a very efficient form of right now accredited investors in a very succinct manner. And so they're just looking at what your story is, what your business traction is, what the management team, what your experience is, and how you plan to use the proceeds. And then the people decide what businesses they want to fund. And in 18 months, we've funded over 50 deals, which is a lot more than typical venture deals fund. We're obviously better at early stage, but you can I'm literally telling you, anyone in this room or anyone in the United States can have an idea, but it has to be very well baked, very well thought out, can put this up, can overnight get it to thousands of accredited, tens of thousands to accredited investors, and let the audience to decide what companies they want to back. That's a huge shift in the way that we can get women to be funded, people of diversity to be funded. It really doesn't matter. It can be the greatest equalizer. What I also say is if you're a woman, then it's important to get onto that platform if you're an accredited investor, and to also support other women that are out there doing businesses so that we can truly impact change.
Great, thank you. So Sophia, alternatives.
Yes, I'm Sofia Viklund, and I'm a founder and head of strategic relations for Backcode. I'm also an accredited investor. Backcode, what it does is we develop serious games. Space of serious games is space where there are very few women. The company is 6 years old. I started it in 2009, and it's my fourth company. I've been doing it for many years. I had my first tech startup in college. The reason I'm telling this to you is to trace the path of how I got where I am right now. I've always been in technology. It's my passion. It's my life. I just love it. To me, having a tech company is the biggest pleasure on earth. And so with the space where Backcode is right now, we're doing advanced research, we're doing advanced projects on how to teach humans any skill in crucially important environments and also other environments. For example, we worked with Boeing. Our projects, one of our important projects was funded by IARPA, which is advanced research for the military. The projects of that scale are really could not be easily funded by angel investors or VCs because experimental research that uses games and also immersive stories to teach people a skill. In our case, it was a project that we developed a game for intelligence analysts, such as CIA agents, to measure their levels of cognitive bias. And levels of cognitive bias measurement was done in partnership with Carnegie Mellon and Johns Hopkins universities that did the underlying research on how you can measure the bias in agents, and if you could change their behavior, if you could change them from having certain levels of a bias, which we all have, to being aware of how you can mitigate that and reduce the bias at all. And that project was going on for 2 years, and we won some awards for that. It's been incredibly important to work on it because I believe that bias is a crucial skill that exists in so many environments, including tech and investments, of course, and perception of women. But I believe that recognizing our bias is very important. So working with the military was very interesting, and I believe that they're really trying to pioneer advanced research and support in the companies. We also work with Gates Foundation. Gates Foundation is funding one of our projects, which is a game to teach teachers how to implement Common Core. Common Core curriculum, as you know, was right now is used in multiple states, but nobody really knows how to use that. So what we're doing is we're designing a game with Gates Foundation to teach teachers how to use that Common Core curriculum, and the rubric is written by Stanford University. So my company was self-funded. All of my previous businesses were. I was very fortunate to partner up with people who also passionate about business, who willing to invest their own money. So I've always owned all my companies free and clear, I would say, and it allowed me a lot of flexibility. But I know that it's in the current environment, women's companies do get less funding than men's companies, and I think that the reasons are, from my personal perspective, is that there's very few women founders in tech. It is just numbers. It's sheer numbers of women who go and found tech companies. I personally know not that many women who actually run their own businesses, and it's in tech, because the industry is incredibly interesting. But again, from women's perspective, I do see that a few of us are actually interested to do that. So I believe that if the numbers of women in tech would be higher, we would, by sheer numbers, we would get more funding. So I don't think it's just because investors are biased. Also, I believe that as I mentor a lot of women, I mentor at Caltech, I'm on the board of multiple organizations, and throughout my career, I've always had incredibly supportive men helping me and my women's organizations to, fulfill our goals. For example, PyLadies, that was founded in 2011 by 7 women software developers, including myself, is right now in 25 countries teaching women how to transition into computer science and how to learn programming language. So the reason I'm saying that to you is that I think that for women to be tech entrepreneurs, it's incredibly exciting career to go into. And I see right now so many women, young women who are inspired to be tech founders. So I would say that it's fantastic. Women must go into tech careers and try to found their companies and be founders, and even fail a few times to learn the ropes. And so with that, I believe that it's important to look at various opportunities to fund your business, such as government grants, such as your friends and family and fools, if that, your parents. It's important to look into, maybe you have friends who knows how to write grants. Again, being connected to the community is very important. I know that I've been voted as one of the most well-connected women in West Los Angeles, and I believe that it gives me incredible advantage in finding right partnerships, finding strategic positioning for the company, and also supporting fellow women in the industry. I do believe that the current climate for women is incredibly advantageous. And so for us to take it, to position ourselves into the industry and get any type of funding and also educate ourselves about how to do that would be incredibly important.
Cool, thank you.
My
Excellent.
pleasure.
So I wanted to go back to Lewis and ask you, I hadn't heard the name of the
SVX?
social, yes, the
Yes,
SVX. So I'd love for you to talk more about that
Sure.
specifically, but just sort of in general, like about specific current programs that women should be trying to access, women should be reaching out to.
Sure. I mean, so look, our office is in the business of retention, expansion, and attraction of companies. So any woman entrepreneur, any entrepreneur period should be looking at the state to figure out a way how to grow their business, whether it be partnerships at the academic level, business level, whatever. So we have at the state level currently, we have a bunch of incentive programs, mostly tax incentives, income tax incentives, R&D tax incentives. But a lot of times what happens at the entrepreneur and innovative level, there's no revenue, so you can't really take part in a lot of that stuff. California competes income tax is the latest, and there's actually a 25% set aside for small business. It's not woman-owned, it's not minority, it's just small business. But you have to have some revenue, so over zero, under $2 million, and you can actually compete for a pot of money that's out there. But the money is income tax credits. The only actual cash that's out there is for training. So the Enterprise Training Panel actually has, you can actually go through their program and tell them what kind of training, and there is more emphasis put on tech training, what kind of training your company would like to provide your workers, and they actually give you cash reimbursement for those training costs. So with the Social Venture Exchange, I was actually introduced to this group by a woman in tech. Her name is Emily Kirsch. She is the CEO and program manager of SfunCube up in Oakland. This is the only solar incubator in the world. She introduced me to the folks, and the SVX actually started up in Canada, Ontario, Canada, and they licensed the platform to a group in Oakland. And because we were trying to change the conversation and figure out a way to help startups, it seemed like a natural fit. One of the reasons why Ontario actually came to talk to us in particular is because they have a lot of similar issues that California does, but there were some gaps and things that they couldn't figure out up in Ontario. And I think a lot of it is just because the platform in Canada is really narrowly focused around women, minority, and immigrants. In California, we're looking to actually expand the platform. So we're actually looking at how to align it with the governor's initiative, so looking at water, energy, health. How do we bring in impact investors from that space so that the money can then fund the Impact Aid program that is part of the SVX platform, which offers the training needed to get small companies, minority women and minority women and immigrant companies, the training they need to become investment ready. But unless we start looking at the whole intersection of education to an investment-ready company, it's hard to get any traction at the state level. So we're actually hopefully rolling this out as part of our business platform later this year. Janelle Watson, who's in the back, is from our office, has been working on the California Business Portal, which is actually going to start pulling together all the resources needed to help inform what's at the state level and what partners are here in the state to help you as a business succeed, from permits to funding.
Do you want to wave so we can come
Oh,
find you after?
Janelle. And I want to thank Janelle, one, because she put together a whole bunch of talking points that I don't have because
That's why I brought my cell phone.
Well, no. So I actually do have them. I want to clarify. But the conversation this morning and what I've heard today actually shifted completely what I was coming to say. Yes, the state has programs. They're incentive-based programs, they're tax credits, they're stuff like that. It's not just cash. But I think we're really excited about the SVX platform because it's going to offer a new opportunity to access cash and dollars that are maybe sitting in wait, and give everybody in these specific communities an opportunity to get funded a different way. So there's the crowdfunding place, there's all these different ways to get there. So at the state level, we're really trying to figure out how to be a partner in the entrepreneurship space, in the startup space. And SVX, the SVX as it came to us, I think is limiting. So we're actually looking to truly expand it and figure out how we can actually transform this whole impact investing space here in California.
Great, thank you very much. So I'm going to be boring and come straight across the same order again. But so I have a question for Erin, which is, as a funder, what can you and your fund do to signal to women entrepreneurs, not just that you want them to apply, that you want that deal flow, but that you're taking proactive steps to give them a fair shake?
I think it's proactively reaching out to women-based companies unprompted. It's getting to know companies at an earlier stage. I think a lot of founders, you get so busy running the business that at the time of fundraising, you haven't built those relationships. And so I think it's important for either venture capital firms or angel investors to proactively reach out and get to know these different businesses and make an effort to get to know women founders and companies that have women on the leadership board. Because at that point, it's an easier conversation, and there's already that familiarity over a longer period of time.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. I had a question for Melinda, which was about, let's talk a little bit about equity crowdfunding. We've got equity crowdfunding, we've got the Kickstarters and Indiegogos of the world. How when you're coming into this brave new world of equity crowdfunding, but the current pool of the participants in the syndicates, on Crowdfunder, on AngelList, wherever, are disproportionately men. Who are bringing those same, and women who are bringing those same biases that exist everywhere else in the world. What can Crowdfunder, what can AngelList be doing? Sort of similar question that I gave Erin, to be proactive, not just sort of inviting women to have a seat at the table, but also saying you're going to have a fair shake.
So
that was totally the same question. Sorry.
I think what's important is that women that are women are in a position right now of being an accredited investor and they care about making change, they have to actually sign up on these platforms. So have a profile on AngelList. Circle Up is great in the consumer product space. Crowdfunder is great in the technology, consumer products, wearable space. And so I am actively going after accredited investors that are women that are on the platform, as well as going after, I do seek deals that are female-based. So next week, we're going to be launching Digits, which is in the payments space, which has got a great management team, and Laura Wagner's the CEO. And so we'll be doing a raise with her, but you have to be smart from a competitive perspective, because there's now millions of campaigns on an annual basis that are between the rewards side to the business as well as the equity side. So you have to think, it's not next.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, folks in the back.
Sorry. Oops, thank you. Sorry about that. So I think, just, it's on, right?
Maybe just bring your mic in a little.
Oh.
Maybe.
Can people hear me now?
Excellent.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Apologize for that. I do think I have a loud voice, though. What I want to say is, it is competitive. Pebble just raised $20 million on Kickstarter, which was the largest campaign, but you really have to go into it understanding that it is an integrated campaign. So with Laura, just because I've taken a special interest in her, because I want more women to be funded, we're working with Kevin Harrington, which was the first shark, and he created As Seen on TV, and he's processed billions of dollars worth of credit. So he's a part of this campaign, and so he's supporting us, and he's an equity owner. So, how can you elevate yourself above all of the noise and be really smart so that you're going to have a higher propensity to being funded, is something that I'd say you really have to think about.
Excellent. All right, back to Sofia. So we talked on the call we had leading up to this, we talked a little bit about the sort of, does there need to be a reframing around bootstrapping? Like does bootstrapping have an image problem, and how does that impact women?
Of course.
Can you bring your mic in just a little? Yeah, sorry. Just bend it towards, it's very bendy.
Okay, is that better? Okay.
Much better.
Yes. If to prove your value to the greater community, your startup may want to show traction, meaning users or the fact that your product is being used. It's really difficult to get funding off just an idea. Though it happened to a friend of mine who just got $500 million from Google Ventures for the product that they don't even have. But that takes special person to do that.
At least it's Google's money, not a pension fund.
Yes. But so that's a wonderful story. But as for most of us, we have to prove that you basically have to get going even if nobody wants to invest in your idea. For example, with Backcode, we are very fortunate to have Fortune 500 clients. So by doing client work, say for Qualcomm or Boeing or Lockheed, we actually proven the traction. So that's also a good way to do it. So if you have a service to offer, you can find clients, and if your clients are big enough, other big guys would listen. So, for example, Gates loved the fact that we worked with advanced military research, and they funded us based upon the cognitive game for mitigation of bias. And this one thing leads to another. So I would think that you have to keep, you may start without having any funding. So, like Paul Graham, a founder of Y Incubator, he says that imagine your startup as being an ugly cockroach. you can have a beautiful flower in a glass tube, so the flower may easily die, it needs a lot of money. If your startup is ugly like cockroach, it will survive a nuclear war. So that's also good advice, I think, because at times if your idea is expensive to start and you need a lot of money, that could be difficult. So, of course, estimations of budgets, knowing whom to hire, this is all comes into play. So definitely, by all means, take accounting courses so understand how to form the budget and how much money you may need. And as for bootstrapping, definitely not everyone could afford that, because at tech conferences, some women come up to me and they say, I worked, for example, for General Electric or for, another big company for many years, and I want to start my own business. What do I need for that? And it's really hard to say, because it depends upon, again, person's financial situation. Do you have small children? Do you have elderly parents that need care? Do you have many dependents? At times, people just cannot do that. So you also have to understand what your financial situation is and if you could support the business, because business is quite expensive. That would be your biggest, I would say, investment of your time, your money, and your soul and your heart. I actually had the biggest honor, it just happened to me a week ago. A friend of mine who is one of the best specialists in robotics, she was Barack Obama nominated educator. She came to me and she told me that she wants to start a robotics company in a medical space. And I was deeply honored, because she says, well, I know you started companies and I've been your advisor for a while, and so now it's my time. And I think that was the best highlight of my year, is to know that she actually wants to do that. So definitely, also reach out to fellow women, see how other people did it. There's so many ways to do it. And I think crowdfunding method is also very, very powerful. One of my friends funded a tabletop game, which is rare, on Kickstarter. They got $1.6 million. Wow. But again, it requires a lot of connections, a lot of PR, a lot of knowing people. So at times, as Erin said before, you have to spend time getting to know people and maybe helping them. So if you help people and you were in the community for a long time, that would definitely you will be benefited, because all the other people would know that you've got the name, you've got the work that you've done with the community. So a number of community initiatives that actually helps women entrepreneurs in Los Angeles are Innovate Pasadena, that I'm a board member of. We've got a lot of women that we've helped through just lining up connections for them. And so definitely women's active participation and putting your heart out there and not being afraid to get it broken is very important.
So I wanted to take one question from the audience and then a question from Twitter. So we'll do the audience question first, and please feel free to be furiously tweeting, and I will look while you're running the mic. Or, yeah, anyway, we'll figure it out. So question from the audience. Anybody? Question here. Yeah. Eat the mic a little.
Testing.
No, hello, yeah, there you go. So one of the things that Sofia said is very important. You have to come, even if your company looks like a cockroach, make sure that it's not a cockroach. Because, no, seriously, because I get emails and calls all the time from people that just want to
You can't kill it.
Well, some you can. They come to me as a state representative wanting money for their idea that's not fully baked, that they haven't done the work needed to be at a place for traditional funding mechanisms or even crowdfunding. And so you have to make sure that even if your idea is a cockroach, make sure that it's one of those that will survive.
Hi, my name is Katie. I'm an incoming student at UCLA Luskin. And I had a question about pay-for-success financing models. I'm not sure if everyone here is familiar, but for those of you who aren't, pay-for-success basically is a partnership between industry and government, and they decide upon agreed upon like social outcome, like having more women in tech or better job training, et cetera. And then the industry partner will provide the financing for that. And if they succeed in reaching that outcome, they are reimbursed in some way. So I was wondering, Louis, from you, like how that model might apply, and
Sure.
also as like at a VC firm, like if that's something that they could encourage among the companies that they fund.
So the pay for success model is something that the state is currently exploring, and that's what I was mentioning earlier with Vixel and Hot House and Octane and a few of these other organizations. We're actually contracting with the SBDC network, Small Business Development Center network, to provide counseling to small businesses and entrepreneurs throughout the state, and based on access to capital, and so capital readiness and other kind of counseling, and how many entrepreneurs are successful in getting to that stage where they're ready, then the SBDCs are funded. So it's something that the state is actually looking at currently. We're going to see if we're actually just now starting to get results from this first initial phase or first initial pilot, I should say, that we're trying. But I think it makes sense if you look at it from a statewide perspective. But again, we have to get away from having a whole bunch of disjointed conversations and start bringing more focus on the whole system versus just bits and pieces. I think earlier is referred to as a low-hanging fruit. I think if we start joining conversations, you can actually make a better impact if you're looking at the state for it to be a partner in things.
I didn't see any questions on the Twitters, so if there's maybe another question in the room.
Come on, people.
I actually had a question for Erin.
That's
How
cool.
did you get into, actually for all of you guys, how did you get into where you are right now? Like what was the path? Like for you, Louis, too, and for you.
Oh, sure.
So I've had a very non-linear career, and I've always taken opportunities.
Bring your mic in.
Oh, sorry. There we go. Taken opportunities as I found them interesting. So I haven't tried to I haven't laid out a certain path that I wanted to get to. It was more interest-based. And so, I started out in marketing and ended in investment banking. And I've always been very curious and asked a lot of questions, and I've always had a lot of mentors. And I think that's really important for men and women. It's to find the support system and find the mentors that can help you, whether they're official or unofficial, and don't be afraid to ask questions. So I've always taken opportunities and parlayed them into something that interests me but is adjacent. And so I came from doing mergers and acquisitions for Condé Nast and their internet division. And so now now I'm doing the same transactions, other side of the table. So there is the baseline understanding of how deals are getting done, but not being set into a certain career path. And, life is evolving, and we no longer live in an age where you take a job and you keep it for 30 years and you have your pension there and you retire there at 60. So, there's lots of new business models that are emerging. People are becoming micropreneurs. They're working for TaskRabbit and Uber, and, you have 3 or 4 jobs. And I think that's kind of where the generational transition of the workforce is going. And that's, and my father kind of did that back 30 years ago, and he was revolutionary. People thought he was crazy, and going from a stockbroker to owning a car wash to real estate private equity, and so I've had that as a role model. And I think that's really important for women, is to look at opportunities, not what the fine print says. Don't look at it as, I need to have this specific job because this is what I've done before, and being open to new opportunities and having the confidence to make the transition.
Yeah. Well,
Sure.
path?
Similar. I truly super curious, follow my passion. I'm really into the environment, female empowerment, and entrepreneurship. So I've had a couple companies. I sold my last company. So I've been an entrepreneur. I've been on the talent agency side. I've been at CAA. I've been at Sony. I've been on the studio side. I've been on the advertising, marketing side. I've been at startups. I advise a bunch of startups. And so Crowdfunder kind of coalesces all of that. And then I'm still able to do angel investing and advising. And I'm launching another company in a couple months that's in the natural products and beauty space. So kind of a serial crazy entrepreneur.
And so my story is long and has a whole bunch of different paths, but essentially how I got to this place at the state is I applied to a Craigslist ad. I was looking for a job. I saw this listing for a junior web developer. I applied. They called me 2 hours later, asked me to come in the next day. The next day I rolled into the office and for half an hour stood at the lobby because nobody was helping me. I told them what I was there for, and they told me they weren't hiring me for that position. So I packed up, get ready to leave. They grabbed me, pulled me to another office, had my resume, everything in front of them. They saw I did IT, they saw I did marketing, they saw I did business development. They asked me if I could handle a network of 250 people, if I could do graphics and Illustrator, if I could do telecom. I said yes. Next thing I know, I'm the statewide IT director for Schwarzenegger's re-election campaign. And so, fast forward to what I do today. I've served as an executive appointee for 8 years now, but yet somehow I never get invited to the Black Appointees Dinner, which is interesting to me. Janelle makes fun of me that I never get invited to my own party. 5 years ago, I heard that an economic development office was being opened at the state level. Because of the different experiences that I've had traveling around the world, playing basketball, just growing up very differently, I thought that I could make an impact to a diverse community versus just a very particular market. And I've had the opportunity to serve you and the rest of the state for 5 years now in this role for innovation entrepreneurship.
Uh-oh. Why are y'all looking at me? Oh, wait, yeah. So, I don't know, my background, I messed around with computers, and it worked out pretty well, and I made some money, and yeah, did some angel investing in friends' companies, portfolio of 2 companies, 50% women. I want to bring it to one of the questions from the audience, from Colleen, about is there a place for public policy, not just like agencies and funding sources, but at the policy level. And I think I would frame that question to the other folks on the panel of corporate policies. And that's some of what I said in my intro, but are there other things that are on your radar in terms of policies that, say, Crowdfunder or your firm could have in addition to at the state level?
Yeah, so you guys obviously can talk from the private sector side. So at the state level, I don't know if a lot of you know Prop 209 that actually took away a lot of the preference given to minority and women-owned organizations as far as purchasing from the state. So the state moved away a while ago from looking specifically at particular sectors of the population. So I think, is there a place for public policy? It's in the public will, right? So it's what gets voted on the propositions. What do you guys actually want to do? Which is why I think it comes to bringing all the conversations back together, because as a united voice, you guys can actually affect the change that you actually want to see.
Cool. Erin?
I think if you make it a policy, it kind of loses you concentrate on filling a seat.
But there's extensive research that shows that it works.
Yeah, I mean, it's just my personal preference. I think that it's interesting. I think you have to make the ecosystem and the environment comfortable for women, because I think women are interested in it, and then somewhere along the way they lose the interest, either because the ecosystem doesn't support them, it's an all or nothing thing. So I think it needs to be looked at a little more holistically, and not we need one person out of 10 to fill this role. And I think it needs to come internal. I think it needs to come as an initiative, as something that the company focuses on.
Who's the one making that initiative?
So,
Yeah.
so even like the bring your daughter to work day or bring your kid to work day, all companies should observe that. I take my daughter to pitch competitions. No, she doesn't think it's fun, but she on the way to these pitch competitions, because of my schedule, she's usually reading me the company briefings, and we basically play Shark Tank in the back of the car.
Yeah.
So yeah, sure, there may be policies in place, there may be these national movements to bring your daughter to work day and so on and so forth, but if people aren't actually observing those things, it doesn't really move the needle at all. So I don't know how you necessarily make a policy for that kind of stuff. It's more you guys actually doing what it takes to bring the folks, bring kids into this, because that's the next generation. I understand you want to do stuff now, but kids are the next thing. So in order to make a true impact,
Are we not abdicating our responsibility as people who are already here, though, to make the field better for women, people of color, LGBT people who are already here?
So and I'll speak from my perspective. What I said earlier about I'm here from the state and I'm here to help is me actually taking responsibility for what I can do. And so if I go to black organizations and I say, hey, here's what I do for the state, a lot of these black organizations actually are the ones that close the door on me because I'm not coming with money. So I'm actually taking responsibility for how I affect change in my community. But if those doors don't open, and as Esprit say, you keep finding for the yes, I go to where I find the yeses in order to come back and try to fix what I can.
I think Melinda maybe had something.
I'd say two things. I'm sort of conflicted. So number one, philosophically, I believe that like we, as human beings, we need to vote with our wallet for what we believe in, and like that's actually speaks in volumes, because ultimately what people demand is what is given, right? So it's a supply demand. That being stated, I also think, and that works well with crowdfunders, so if you're a female and you want more female, vote and back female-based companies, and I do that with my angel investings. I don't angel invest in male-backed companies. So I'm doing it with my wallet, albeit small. And then I think I would like to see, and I don't know, because I feel I'm sort of conflicted on the public policy when you like force people into things, but I definitely think it's important that in the entire value chain as it relates to giving money to companies, that there needs to be more women on boards, more women in advisory positions, and more women as venture partners, because we're just extremely underrepresented. And we know from studies it's like behavioral conditioning and behavioral decision making. So we invest in what we know, and we invest in what we're comfortable with. So Kleiner
Got my
Perkins
Zuckerberg
invests
hoodie going on.
in men that are socially awkward, that are typically in their 20s, that don't have good social skills, that dropped out from Stanford or Harvard, that live 50 miles away from them. So we need to change that.
Do you have any thoughts on policy, Sofia?
Well, because I do a lot of public work, I do have some role models that I think have the biggest impact upon changing the image of women in the technology. Actually, one role model through, this is how Erin got on the panel, was because one of her partners, an award-winning female journalist, is here. And I'd like to give her a shout out. She's a fantastic role model. Bambi Francisco is right there. Bambi, thank you so much. Bambi runs Vader, and it's, she is the CEO of it, and, they based in Silicon Valley. She has one of my friends who is incredibly high-powered woman in the Bay Area. She told me 3 years ago that you have to meet Bambi. Bambi is doing her first event in LA. So I came out and I met Bambi at Vader. The reason I'm saying that is that women have to connect to other powerful women that could serve as their role models, and women who transcend I would say, they come to the level where they could help other women, and they could also serve as role models. Because in tech, historically, there was so much infighting between men and women, but from my personal experience, men are incredibly important and very supportive. It's how you look at it. You can take men and you can turn them into your enemies, or you can have them as powerful allies, and you can, accomplish a lot of stuff through that. So it's how you play the game. I know Erin's been very successful as an investor. She works fantastically with guys. I think for women to be successful at their own public policy is to project the image of success and actually get stuff done, because I hear a lot of complaining at times about, oh, it's terrible and men are bad and they're abusing women and all this other stuff. But what did you do? Personal accountability. Have you been successful? Have you tried to start a company? What did you do to get it funded? And where is the product? So I would say that women also have to hold ourselves to higher standards of let's get stuff done, let's connect to other women, we have so much opportunity. I come from Russia where, when I was a young child, it completely economically fallen apart. The reason I started my first company in college, and the reason I was able to study in London, because I knew that I had no choice but start a technology company. And, Eastern Europe is still it's a horrible place for women owners to have a company. And I've been in US for a few decades, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be here and have a company. But there is a tremendous difference, a tremendous advantage that we have been based in US, because women, as women, we have so much power. Just look at the Middle East, look at India, look at a lot of countries.
I don't think it's super useful to say it's worse elsewhere. We're
but
talking
we
about
have a certain
solutions.
advantage of being in Los Angeles and being women entrepreneurs. So.
I'm not going to argue with you that it's better here than a lot of places, but we're less bad is not a good metric to go for. We should be holding ourselves to higher standards.
But we're, again, role models for the world, possibly. Yes.
We're shitty role models. If this is like the best that we can do as a species,
And we're under 10%.
we're under 10%. I think
Almost
we can do
across
better than
all
that. I think we
verticals.
can aspire to doing better
When
than
we're
that.
more than,
Yeah.
we
That's
have
our
more than
hope
50%
and our
purchase
work.
power.
And especially, like, if you look at the numbers around women being in tech as a field,
Yeah.
Malaysia has 62% women CS grads. The highest number of physics grads, I believe, is actually in Iran, of all places. But yeah, CS, 52% in Malaysia. That's so, like, there's something going on in this country, both in the pipeline, but also in the sort of systemic issues that we've been talking about. And I think that's what I hope we're going to come back to in the afternoon with some of the focused discussion groups. I think we only have 2 minutes, so maybe if I can get one sentence, like, action item from everyone here. And yeah.
You want me to start?
Go for it, if you're
Sure.
up for it.
Reach out to me. I need partners in the state to transform the conversation.
I think it's finding ways to get involved with other businesses, other entrepreneurs, other investors, someone that's not at your current company, and expand your network, expand your knowledge of other industries. And I think that's what women can do.
And I would say.
What about what men can do?
Oh.
What?
What can men do as well?
What can men do? Make it more comfortable for women to be at the table with them. It's not, a boys' club. It's just a table.
And I would say to crowdfund. So either start your own crowdfunding campaign or support whoever. Honestly, I believe in human potential, so just get involved.
I would say get celebrity endorsements. Elon Musk supported one of my women's events, not long ago, and he was a fantastic endorsement for supporting women. So that getting the wonderful endorsements is really gives you a lot of power.
And I guess my takeaway would be look for places where you can get leverage and apply it. Thanks everyone for coming out to the panel.
Thank you.